I think it must be something of a record. James Heapy has said that he's standing down at the next election. I think that makes 65 Conservative MPs who have now said that they are going to quit. James Heapy was an army officer who served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and that means almost one-fifth of the Conservative Parliamentary Party has effectively resigned. It's simply waiting until the time when it can go off and collect its retirement pension. And so many of these MPs who are saying they're no longer coming back are high profile, and it suggests a lack of morale, a certainty that the Conservative Party is going to lose at the next election, what Labour would call a zombie parliament, and a it's like a storm taking place, or an arson attack, and Rishi Sunak has to stand there with some sort of hose putting it all out. Where he hasn't got a hose, he's got a squirter, and that isn't very successful, or a whistle. And at the moment, the Conservative Party is trailing Labour by 20 points. To have a May election now is to call for certain annihilation. But I don't think it's about annihilation. I wish Sunak and his crowd would wake up to the reality. The reality is the Conservatives have lost the next general election, whatever else happens. The sensible thing to do now is to convert the party into a party of opposition, to make it ready to fulfill its constitutional duty and to do its job. And the failure of Rishi Sunak and his cabinet to do their job is the biggest problem. Putting everything behind the spring budget and hoping the spring budget is going to be some sort of Disney fairy godmother. Mr. Hunt is no fairy godmother. Mr. Hunt can barely manage his own department, let alone the entire government. Like Boris Johnson staking everything on the vaccine. Well, that only happened so far. That didn't work either. The vaccine bounce was maybe a lift for a short while, but it was going to plummet down because Boris hadn't got control of the systems. Rishi Sunak has significantly more control, but he's starting from a much lower ebb because he picked up the can after Liz Truss had fouled, had soiled the. I think we're going in the wrong direction of the metaphors, but anyway, the can was full of something, and Rishi Sunak was carrying it. And the local elections are now coming up. So if he wants to anchor the local elections to a general election, that is like bringing on the end of the world for the Conservative Party. It will never recover from that. Maybe the Labour supporters will cheer at that point and say, well, thank God, because it's a dreadful, dreadful party, the party of hate. But it doesn't need to be. And we need an opposition. We need a successful opposition. One of the reasons that the Conservative Party is possibly in such a bad state at the moment is because for so long, during its 14 years of tenure, it was facing an opposition that didn't work. And the nonsense of this last week, where we've had the Prime Minister putting out these ideas about extremism and at the same time tolerating somebody who can use such appalling language and such violent language against the first female black MP is extraordinary. And the fact that Rishi Sunak hesitated before calling these comments racist and wants to keep the money makes it absolutely clear that this party is finished. Whether or not it's going to be taken over by reform, that's another matter. I think not. I think reform is a blip in the ocean. And while we still have a first past the post system, reform cannot emerge as the victorious party of the right. But the power of junior members of the cabinet to force Rishi into submission, even when they're doing the right thing, demonstrates the lack of his own power. So, for example, when it was Kemi Badenoch who really pushed Rishi into recognizing that Hester's comments were racist. Of course they were. Of course they were racist. Of course they were wrong. But he should have been there first. And so last week or the week before, he was staking all his hopes on the budget. Now he's staking all his hopes on inflation. What's coming next after inflation proves to be an unreliable mistress? Rishi has to prepare the party, the country, and himself for opposition.